Hello, welcome to Jason on Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And in this video, I am continuing or going off of some other YouTubers have been doing a ranking of Beatle albums lately. So I thought I'd jump on this thread as a big Beatles fan myself. And as all big Beatles fans that we are, there's nothing we love more than talking about our favorite Beatles albums and ranking those albums. So it's something I do all the time. It's a fun thing to talk about. Everybody seems to have a different list because, quite frankly, they're all really good albums. Definitely some really great ones, some not as great, but still good, I think. So I thought it'd be interesting to put my 2 cents in of my favorite albums as well. And so here's my list. And I'm only do 12. I don't put Yellow Submarine in my list just because it's an album that only has like 4 new Beatles songs on it. Besides that, there's a bunch of other Beatles songs are on other albums, and then the whole second side is just George Martin musical numbers from the movie Yellow Submarine. So I didn't feel like a real authentic Beatles album to me. It feels more like just a soundtrack to a movie compared to Help and Hard Day's Night and Let It Be feel like actual albums to me. But anyways, that's my opinion. So, and Yellow Submarines definitely would be the worst if I put it in there. So I just don't even count it in there. I like to just think of the other 12 really in my list. So number 12, I'm going with a common one, I think, and that is With the Beatles is my 12th spot. I've seen other people put it there, kind of at the 12th spot as well. Like you say, it's their second album. I don't know if it's a sophomore slump, if you call it. It just lacks really a lot of the strong big hit songs. Of course, I always say like if they put "She Loves You" and "I Want to Hold Your Hand" on this album, it would be a so much better album. Of course, they lift off all the great singles off these albums, and so it made the album not as good as it could be. Because I mean, you put those songs on, it's one of the greatest albums of all time. It feels like, and some other ones, but definitely "All My Loving" and "It Won't Be Long" are definitely 2 strong songs that I listen to the most off this album. Of course, it's another album that is, I think, 8 originals and like 6 cover songs. Cover songs not as strong, I think, as some other ones. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't remember all the cover songs, but I know "Money." That's what I want. Whatever is the ending, which is an okay cover song, but not one of my favorites. So that's number 12. Number 11, I got another kind of common one, I think, and that is "Beatles for Sale." And I hate putting it so low because I think it's a really good album. It's a one I like to listen to quite a bit. It has a lot of great songs on it. And I think I saw some other people put it pretty low. And I've even heard some people say it's a terrible album. Like, I don't think it's a terrible album. Again, it's 8 originals, I believe, and 6 cover songs. The 8 original songs are really good on here. I mean, No Reply, one of my favorite Beatles songs of all time. I'm a Loser, Don't Spoil the Party, I'll go, I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, Babies in Black, some really good hidden gems there. I'll Follow the Sun, I absolutely love that song, one of the great underrated songs of Beatles history. Where it loses me is the cover songs are the worst cover songs, I think, of all the cover songs that they do on album. I really do not like the 2 Carl Perkins songs. Honey Don't, I think it's terrible, and Everybody Wants to Be My Baby, really bad. And I don't know, this is one with Mr. Moonlight. I think I heard Rob Scurr talk about this. Yeah, it's definitely some pretty bad songs. So unfortunately, the cover songs bring the whole album down, but still, the originals are so good on that album. But I still got to put there at number 11 because of that. Number 10 spot, first one I got on final at the moment, is their debut album, Please Please Me. Again, really great debut album, I think, and got some really good classics here. And this is one of the few ones where they put their actual singles on here, like "Please Please Me," which is a song I really like, and then "Love Me Do," another hit single for them as well. Can't remember. I'm sure there's some other ones that might have been singles that were the B-sides, I'm sure. But those are the 2 strong ones that were like singles at the times, which I wish they would put more singles on their albums. It would have made their albums even greater. But I guess they didn't think about making great albums as much as putting out as much content as they could. Obviously, I Saw Her Standing Here, great opener. But yeah, it's a really, I almost want to say underrated album, even though it's so low on my list. It's still got some great stuff. And I think what makes it strong is a lot of the good cover songs are on here. Twist and Shout, the greatest cover song I think they've ever done, is on here. But Baby to You, I really like that cover song as well. Chains, I think, is pretty good. And Anna Go to Him, I really like as well. So that's what makes this a pretty strong debut album. There at 10. Number nine. Number nine. I don't have my list, so I'm trying to remember this on top of my head. I got Hard Day's Night. Again, really great album. It's a little bit lower on my list just because there's so many great Beatles albums, but also, what can you say? It's all Lennon McCartney songs, all sung by Lennon, or no, I guess there's a George song in there. I don't think there's any Ringo's, but yeah, just I always say this is them at the height of their mop top days, of their olden kind of first period days, or just really nice, catchy rock pop music before they really started getting a little more complex in the studio system, I think, and their writing style got a little more mature, I think, thanks to influences of Bob Dylan and all that. But still, this is like one of the great, 60s rock albums of that period of the British invasion. Of course, Hard Day's Night opens up. I should have known better. Really love that song. If I Fell is my favorite on here. And I Love Her, absolutely amazing. Yeah, some good ballads here by Paul. And then you got, a lot of Can't Buy Me Love, a lot of great rock songs of that time. And yeah, just really solid. Every song works. It's one of those albums where, yeah, not really a really bad song in here, unlike some other, like, I always say the Ringo songs are usually the worst on these albums, like Boys and Honey Don't, or some of my worst. But this is a good one because it's all Paul or Lennon McCartney songs, and definitely very solid album there. So that's number 9. Number 8 is where I'm going to lose people. People are going to get mad at me when I go to my number 8, because definitely it's one that's higher on other people's lists, and that is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Number 8 on my list, which I know is a shocker because it's like number 1 on a couple people's lists. I think Rob Scurr had number 1, Glenn had it number 1. Everybody has it in the top 2 or 3. Yeah, I have it at number 8. It's lower on my list. Still a really great album. Obviously, it's got one of the greatest songs in their discography, A Day in the Life. Ends the album. I love She's Leaving Home, is one of my favorite Paul songs. It's Getting Better is a great song, a kind of underrated song on there. And A Little Help from My Friends, one of Ringo's great vocals that he did. So there's definitely some really good stuff there. I just think there's a lot of mediocre songs on there, and one of my least favorite is Within You Without You. I really hate that song. My least favorite George song, I think, or definitely towards the bottom of what he's done, and it's the only song he puts on here. But When I'm 64, Fixin' a Hole, Lovely Rita, just very mediocre Beatles songs. Even Sgt. Pepper's, The Bend for Mr. Kite, songs that are on the bottom of my Beatles. When I'm doing my ranking the Beatles songs, they're at the bottom of my list. A lot of songs I just do not care for on that album. So I don't know, everybody loves that album, but I look at it and go, man, there's so many mediocre songs on here. There's some great ones and some mediocre ones, so it's kind of a mixed bag. So that's why I have it at number 8. The other number 7 is the other album people are going to be mad at me about, probably. What can I say? I have Abbey Roads here at number 7. That's obviously like the popular number 1 now. It seems like almost every album rankings I see, Abbey Roads is number 1 on there. I don't know if it was always that popular. I think it was always pretty popular, I guess, but it was never as popular with me. Again, it's another one where it has some of the best Beatles songs on it, and yet a lot of the most mediocre songs as well. So it's a mixed bag for me, and that's why I kind of have in the middle. Obviously, Come Together, Here Comes the Sun, and Something are like top 10 Beatles songs for me. So it's crazy that this album has like 3 top 10 Beatles songs of all time for me. Love them so much, especially Something, Here Comes the Sun. I mean, it's George's 2 best songs I think he ever did with the Beatles. And you got some other, and Octopus's Garden is my favorite Ringo song, so I think that's a very underrated song. Really good. Where the album kind of loses me a little bit is stuff like Oh Darling. People love that song. Like, it's one of my least favorite Beatles songs. I just never cared for it. I Want You, She's So Heavy could be good if it was just shorter. It just drags on too much for me. Maxwell Silver Hammer, just mediocre song. And then the backside, everybody loves the medley, I guess. To me, the medley is just a mediocre bunch of songs. I mean, she came in through the bathroom window, go in slumbers, carry that weight. The end part is, you never give my money are decent songs, but not nearly at the top of my Beatles song list. Like they're still kind of towards the bottom of my list of songs. And you got like stuff like Me and Mr. Mustard and Polly Think Pam, and that are. I don't think this doesn't even have the last song on here. I don't see on there, but about the Queen. What? But yeah, that's why I know everybody's. I know is like you're crazy. Why is that not higher on the list? I'm like that's why I find those songs to be very mediocre to not very good, mixed in with some of the greatest music ever made. So that's why it's kind of mixed for me. So that's why I got there at number 7 on my list. Number 6 on my list is Magical Mystery Tour, which I think is one of the most underrated albums. Like again, I feel like I have it pretty high up on my list. And there's a big debate. We even talked about it on Glenn the Calloway's channel recently. Is Magical Mystery Tour really a Beatles album? Should be considered a Beatles album, I guess. And I always grew up with it as an album, so I never questioned it. It wasn't until recently that I found out that it was actually an album that was only like 6 songs or something like that put together for the movie that were in the movie, and then they slapped on like another 5 or so 6 singles or whatever at the end, and kind of made it a full album. So there's this question debate of like, does it count because they put a bunch of singles in it and they weren't really meant for an album? And again, it's one of the only few albums where they actually put their singles on it. So they usually kept the singles and the album songs separately. But I don't know. All I know is ever since I was a kid, Magical Mystery Tour, it felt like it was always an album that you got and you listened to, and it feels like it's all new Beatles music, and I don't know. So I always counted it as a official Beatles album, and because of that, yeah, it's when you look at it, I mean, it's just got some of the greatest Beatles songs ever on it. One of my favorite albums of all time, in fact. I mean, not only do you have the songs on the movie, which Magical Mystery Tour, I'm the Walrus, such a great, unique song. Full in the Hill, another great Paul kind of ballad song, whatever. And then you throw in at the end these great singles like Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane. I mean, come on, some of the best Beatles songs of all time. All You Need Is Love, Hello, Goodbye. It's just amazing. I mean, I love these singles. So like, I wish the Beatles did more of that. Put the singles in their songs. It would make or in their albums. It would make the albums even better than they already are. They're already the greatest albums. But man, I would love to see some of those singles put in there, mixed, take out some of the songs I don't care about so much. Anyways, but yeah, Magical Mystery Tour, such an amazing album for that. Anyway, so that's number 5 on my list, or 6 on my number 6 on my list. So number 5 on my list. Another album I think is underrated, and that is Let It Be. I see it's mostly at the bottom of everybody's list of Beatles. Again, everybody has Sgt. Pepper and Abbey Road's at the front. I have Let It Be, I think, higher than most people. Most people have this towards the back. It's the last album came at the end. It's criticized because Phil Spector putting a lot of his own stuff in it, and I guess people feel like it maybe ruined the songs. I guess I never felt that way. I mean, I grew up listening to this album and thought it was great. Didn't know anything about the controversy, I guess, of Phil Spector. I just thought, man, this is such a great Beatles album. Yeah, one put together. It's the last one that came out in 1970. Second to last one they actually recorded. Obviously, you watch the Get Back documentary. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of drama. Definitely was. This is like the album where the Beatles are breaking up. You can tell from watching that documentary, of course, and then you listen to it. It's like, yeah, these are the Beatles. They're breaking up at this point, but they still gave us one heck of an album. I mean, come on, Let It Be, one of the greatest songs of all time. One of my favorite Beatles songs of all time. Mixed in with another song that I love, Long and Winding Road is another top 10 Beatles song for me. I've heard people not like that song, but man, I love that song so much. Paul is always so great when he is on a piano and he's singing those ballads. Those are some of my favorite Beatles songs in here. But I mean, it begins with Two of Us, another just absolute gem of a song. Paul and John duo. Dig a Pony is a really good song. It's kind of one that I don't know people don't talk about or don't like as much, but I really like that song. Cross Universe, great song. I Mean Mine is a song that's really growing on me. Lately, I've been listening to that and thinking, man, this is a much better song than I remember it being. Um, the biggest problems are Dig It and Maggie May. They're throwaway songs. I would love them to take that off. One After 909 is a pretty bad song. It's kind of just thrown on there. So it definitely was an album where they didn't have enough songs to fill it out, or they didn't. So they kind of put a lot of great songs with a couple terrible songs in there, but still, Get Back, great, one of their best rock songs to end it. But yeah, Let It Be, number five, my fifth favorite Beatles album. Still amazing. All right, fourth favorite Beatles album is the White Album, or it's the Beatles self-titled album, but we consider it the White Album. It's the only double album they have. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised myself because this was an album I never liked growing up. I think because it's so weird and different than the Beatles' older albums. Because I think when I was a kid and I first discovered the Beatles, I first discovered their earlier stuff and really got into some of the earlier, more catchy rock tunes. And then you get to the White Album. It's such a weird album. I remember first time listening to it, I'm just like, this is a terrible album. It's so weird. And but then last couple of years, I feel like I re-listened to the album, and I'm like, gosh, I really love this album. It's one of the best albums of all time. I think because of the uniqueness of there's so much different stuff in here, and they all feel like non-Beatles type songs, and they're doing so many different genres of songs that's not usual for them, and yet it all works. I mean, and you got just everything from rock songs to pop songs, um, to yeah, ballads, to heavy metal. It feels like at times psychedelic songs, children sing along songs. And then you got Revolution number nine, the worst Beatles song of all time, in my opinion, on this album, which is just a experimental mess. But still, it just still makes it to me one of the great albums. So that's why last time I listened to it, I was like, man, I like this album way more than I ever expected to. So the White Album for me at number four. All right, so it's my top three. I actually got number three. It's another one where I have it way higher than everybody else, I feel like. And I don't know why this isn't talked about enough, and that is Help at number three. I really thought this is where, when you go from, of course, Hard Day's Night to Beatles for Sale, and then you go to Help, it feels like with Help, their sound is starting to change just slightly, not a lot more with the next two albums I'm going to talk about, but I think their influences from Bob Dylan, their songwriting is getting better. You got some, and I thought this, and other people said this, so I'm glad. So I kind of agree with a lot of people that you got to Hide Your Love Away. It feels like that could have been a Bob Dylan song, and it's one of my favorite Beatles songs of all time. And I just love of course, acoustic guitar on there, and John's vocals with those lyrics are really great. But man, it's just a fun song. But it's almost a perfect album, except for, as Rob Scurr Music said, I think a lot of people said, Dizzy Miss Lizzy doesn't feel like it fits on this album. Because mostly originals, except for Dizzy Miss Lizzy and Act Naturally are the two covers. But Act Naturally, I think, is a really good song, and one of the best cover songs, actually. And I thought Ringo does a really good job on here. Um, but everything else is like these just solid rock pop songs and ballads and all that. And they definitely are spending more time in this is kind of what I consider the middle period of the Beatles, which is my favorite period. They're putting more time in the studio. They're still making songs that they can play in concert, but yet they're putting a little more effort in studios, putting more strings and horns in there. And stuff like that, which I think helped the album. Obviously, you start with Help, great opener, rock song in there. I Need You is one of my favorite George songs. I think it's definitely showing him to being a good songwriter and can really arrange a good song. You're Gonna Lose That Girl. I love that song so much. I don't think it's talked about enough. And then Ticket to Ride, one of their favorite rock songs of that period. Great guitar work there and drumming. And then you get to Yesterday, almost the second to last song. Yesterday, such an amazing song, and so much different. Almost feels like a Paul McCartney ballad solo song, not a Beatles song. And you got those beautiful string arrangement in there. Oh, such a wonderful, and the lyrically, so amazing lyrically, vocally, music arrangement. I mean, it's just the perfect song for me. Yesterday, I absolutely love that song. So how can I not put this any higher, any lower than number three when it has some of my favorite songs on there? So yeah, Beatles Help. Number two, the next album actually. These are all in a row. Help, 1965. Uh, Rubber Soul also came out in 1965, later after Help. And you can already tell, this is my number second favorite Beatles album. You already tell the difference. Like, I remember the first time listening to this album, it just felt like, wow, this feels so much different than the other albums before it, even. It just feels heavier. The guitars feel heavier. The bass, like, they got this fuzzy bass at sometimes. And you get Drive My Car. Drive My Car is like the best rock song they have made up to that point. Like, you listen to that, and that guitar solo just absolutely kills, and it's the best guitar solo I've heard out of them up to this point. So when you get to Drive My Car, you're just like, wow, this, like, it just feels heavier, and you definitely can feel that they're starting to go more studio and less songs to play live. And the obviously, like I said, so studio work is just to put more time in there. It's getting more complicated studio wise, which I think makes the songs better in a sense. And I think the writing styles definitely getting better, more mature. I think, of course, they're getting maybe older, and all the influences of other people are making their songwriting better. Just everything's gotten so much better. Rubber Soul to me was just a what's the word? A very important point in their career where their sound changes a little bit, but still the Beatles. You still get those great harmonies, of course, and just really amazing rock songs. You're getting a little more ballads in there, and really making the overall sound better. I mean, Norwegian Wood, I mean, amazing songwriting, and you get the little sitar in there, but great acoustic guitar work in there. Nowhere Man, another one of my favorites, one of the best harmony vocal songs that they made. Absolutely love the harmonies there. Um, Girls, pretty interesting. And then you got In My Life, one of my favorite Beatles songs of all time. One, I think probably the best song John ever wrote. It's such a great, I love the guitar in there. I love how it kind of is reminiscing. The lyrics are so good, kind of thinking about the past, So it's so introspective kind of song that is so beautiful and great. Wait is a very underrated song, I think. Great harmonies. And then If I Need Someone, one of George's best songs. And it's got one of the great catchy choruses with great harmonies as well. Anyway, so yeah, to me, this is just a monumental album in the Beatles that really changed their sound, and definitely was like they're evolving into something different, but while still being the great Beatles that they are. So, number one favorite album, you probably can guess, is Revolver, because the only one I haven't talked about. And this comes right after Rubber Soul. It comes out in 1966. And it's kind of the same as Rubber Soul. For a long time, it's always been between Rubber Soul and Revolver has been my two favorite albums. And one time Rubber Soul was my number one, but then one time I listened to Revolver and I was like, Revolver is just a little bit better than Rubber Soul. Yet for the same reason, just feels a little heavier. The songs, I mean, Taxman has got one of the greatest guitar solos I've heard, and just the riff is so amazing. I mean, it's just a great way to begin the record. And then you get Eleanor Rigby. I mean, just all this great string arrangement, and it's really almost just a Paul solo song, but it's absolutely beautiful. But every song is just absolutely amazing on here. That's why it's number one. I mean, I even like Dr. Robert. A lot of people don't like that song. Great song. Andy Burke can sing, one of the best rock songs they've ever done, and one of the great riffs of all time. For No One, so amazingly written and haunting. I always said, like, you get one of the best, probably the best love song they've ever done, Here, There, and Everywhere. I think one of the best written love songs that Paul did. And then you got For No One, which is like one of the great breakup songs where it's like they're obviously breaking up. So it's like, here's a great song for a wedding. Here's a great song for if you're getting divorced. They kind of go their gamut for that. But it's another album that has, I mean, it's some of the best rock songs they ever did. Again, the guitar work is so amazing on here, and the drumming and the bass work. It just feels just a step ahead from what they've done before. But you got everything from Yellow Submarine, kind of a funny kid song. You got hard rock, you got psychedelic in here, you got love songs, beautiful love songs in here. Then you got Tomorrow Never Knows, just the craziest song of all time to end the album, great ender, where you're just like, what am I listening to? First time you listen to it, you're like, this is the craziest thing I've ever listened to. And even today, I hear stuff that's not as crazy as this song in a good way. It's just so amazing how many sounds they put in here, and it's one of the best psychedelic rock songs of all time. So yeah, it's just got everything in here that you want in this one album, and it's just amazing, amazing music. And that's why I have it here, Revolver, at #1 on my list. So thanks for watching. Please comment, what do you think? Am I crazy on my list? I know you're going to get backlash for Abbey Roads and Sgt. Peppers, but hopefully I explain my case the best I can. And thank you for watching, thank you for liking, and thank you all subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate all of you and hope you have a good day.